Hi, I'm Liz Seeley, founder of Starry-Eyed Strategy, and I help you turn creativity into your greatest competitive advantage. After decades partnering with the world's best, biggest, and most beloved brands, I want to take you behind the scenes to see how the most creative leaders turn ideas into impact. Each episode features leaders from top CEOs and CMOs to founders and authors, revealing how they stay inspired to create brands that launch and last, and how you can do it too. You'll walk away with practical lessons and tools you can use, whether you're repositioning your brand, rallying your team, or planning your next big launch. So let's get started and stay starry-eyed. My guest today is Eleanor Hayden. Eleanor is the founder and CEO of Verity, a full-service shopper marketing and retail media agency helping mission-driven CPG brands win where it matters most, at shelf. She began her career at PepsiCo before moving into high-growth challenger brands like Kodiak Cakes and Siete Foods, where she saw firsthand how hard it is for emerging better-for-you brands to compete inside a retail ecosystem built for big legacy CPG. In 2021, Eleanor founded her agency with a clear thesis: challenger brands deserve the same level of shopper marketing sophistication as big CPG, but with strategies designed for modern brands, not legacy budgets or bureaucracy, which we'll get into. A few years later, she's partnered with more than 70 brands, delivering outsized results, including 150% growth in retail media ad sales and a proven track record of winning in-store displays and key retail moments. Eleanor, you and me go way back. We worked on the same brand innovation team years ago, where you helped lead competitive research, strategy, client presentations for big brands. And then when you started in 2021, you were such a wonderful friend to me, encouraging me as I launched Starry-Eyed Strategy later that year. And it's been amazing to watch both businesses begin and grow. So Eleanor, welcome to Stay Starry-Eyed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
As we start, I'd love for you to speak directly to the brand leader listening. What do you hope they'll take away from our conversation today? What do you think is one thing they'll want to try or think differently about for their own brand and biz?
Yeah, I think, one thing that has been such a hot topic is retail media. Of course, everyone's so jazzed on it, and it makes sense. There's a lot of really great data. It's fast to implement. You can do it with just about any budget. There are very low barriers to entry. But one thing that I'm noticing a lot of emerging brands have a bit of a blind spot on is the in-store component, and still making sure that their true kind of core shopper marketing capabilities are in place. And I think the biggest thing to take away is just don't forget that 92% of grocery shopping is still happening in stores. And so as much as retail media and online grocery is growing, definitely, play there and capitalize on that. But we don't want to forget about some of those really traditional core tactics that have been really useful for brands for, ever.
Forever. Since the dawn of time when you're picking your own products.
Yes, exactly.
Well, the other thing I love about what you do is bring that big brand sophistication to these up and coming brands. Similar side things with Starry-Eyed Strategy. That is what we do, is bring these best practices to brands of all sizes. When you think about the differences between, starting at Pepsi and then moving to these challenger brands, Kodiak, Siete, what did you see was the contrast? What did it teach you about the difference between the big and the small?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember when I first started at Kodiak, asking about okay, so, how often are we doing pallet drops at Walmart? And I remember, or not Walmart, I guess, but I remember asking about key retail. They weren't in Walmart yet when I started, but questions like that, how often are we doing pallet drops? Oh, you have a new flavor. You're not just sending it to the stores. It was such a learning curve when I first went from big CPG to small, because they were no, you can't just ship the product to stores and expect that they're going to put it on the shelf. And I'm that's what we did at Pepsi. We got new flavors and we cut it in. And so I think it was pretty funny seeing some of that contrast and going through some of those questions, learning what it was like to work with a brand that didn't have DSD and that didn't have in-store merchandising teams. I was whoa, because I would be okay, great. We're going to get signage made and we're going to make, merch kits for all of the merchandisers. And Kodiak's what merchandisers? We don't have that. And so it is, I think that was probably one of the more funny moments. And then really when you think about the difference, going from like a Pepsi to a Kodiak or Siete was really like how much more, the connection with the shopper is how important that is. Like, I actually didn't really feel like at Pepsi that was, you know, something that I was on the sales team at Pepsi. We didn't really push that. It was always like negotiating pricing and margins and like new flavors. So you're going to get more velocities. Like, it was very like, calculated and data driven, which is like, one way to do it. But it was just cool with Kodiak to be able to go and collaborate with a buyer on like a national flapjack day campaign and, talk about like a fun, experiential event we could do in stores and how we engage with shoppers and, influencers to, get within the community and all of that. So it was just very different. And then Siete is like such a case study in that too, right? Like, talking about building connection, it's like they do that first. That's like that's who they are. And you wouldn't even think, I don't know. You wouldn't even think about like the numbers and negotiating and all of that. It's really like when you think about Siete, you think about like, building and working on a product that was really like meant to give people a better experience and be able to enjoy the foods that they grew up loving. So it's cool to see kind of like that difference. And I know that a lot of that's kind of obvious, but it is funny when you put it in those exact examples,
And you're forced to be more creative, it sounds like, because you don't have all the resources of a huge conglomerate. You're forced to
Yes.
the storytelling, I love what you said about, the events and the celebrations, like what is the new news for these up and coming brands, which is what we try to do with whether it's CPG or restaurant or personal care. Like, you really need to get much more creative.
Yeah, your KPIs are completely different. Like when I was at Pepsi, it was like, we had an issue with 7-Eleven, for example, is like a retailer that so many of those stores are franchised. So even though they have these agreements in place from like headquarters perspective of like, hey, we have, Pepsi might have bought all the rights to 7-Eleven for Gatorade, so they shouldn't be having Powerade. But if you have an independent store owner that's running it, like they are putting whatever they want in the store, like not necessarily super compliant. So it's like a lot of my job was making sure that like compliance on our agreements were being put in place and that we had like the right distribution and, the right like variety and pog sets and all that stuff. And so but then you go to like Kodiak and it was like, okay, Eleanor, you have this budget. How can you do as much as possible with this budget? So like one of my biggest KPIs that I made for myself was like, I need to get as much stuff for free as I can. And so, really like bringing cool ideas to the retailer. And I was like, okay, I'll pay for this if you can lean in on here, or like, how can we, and that was, a time where things were a lot more negotiable. I will say it's crazy how much times have changed too in shopper and like how many things are different now. Like when pre-COVID, it was like, you could really like chat with a grocery retailer and get them to post on Instagram about you for free, or you could get them to like, toss you a free ad or things like that in exchange for certain things. Now it's like vendor income is such a focus. It's like it's part of the negotiation process. It's like, hey, okay, if we're going to carry your products, like now you got it's not just slotting fees. Now it's like you need to have this much in vendor income. You need to be spending this much with our media network. And so for us, a lot of our job is really helping brands figure out like the best way to spend it. A lot of times brands will come to us, like, for example, Target is really great. This is a good example, is that like Target has a lot of minimums for different types of their relationships. So like when you look at, Target, if you want to run a multi-vendor campaign, it's $75K minimum, but you also can't participate in multi-vendor campaigns unless you're committed to spending $500,000 for the year in total with Roundel. But then like a client might come to us and say, hey, we just got distribution and we committed to spending $150K. And I'm like, well, you can't participate in any of their programs with that. So you'd have to put that all into sponsored search, for example, but your business isn't big enough to actually spend $150 on sponsored search. You're not gonna be able to fulfill it. So having to go and help them like renegotiate or say, hey, can you get an exception from your buyer to Roundel to participate? So anyways, there's a lot of those like nuances that a lot of the like more emerging brands don't know or have access to. And honestly, a lot of the big brands probably don't know either because they've never had issues meeting minimums. And so I feel like it's been really cool to be able to be that intermediary for brands that they can really trust, to give them a recommendation that's like truly focused on what's going to grow their business. I think for us, like my kind of thing that I always say with the team is like, as long as our clients' businesses are growing, ours will grow too. So I'm not really like, we're not, we don't really have like a revenue goal as an agency. And like, we don't really like have these crazy growth goals necessarily. Cause I'm just kind of like, I want to keep doing this. I want this to be my job forever. So I'm on this like long-term slow growth path. And yeah, I'm just not, as focused on all of that. I just want to keep making sure we do good work. And when we do that, clients will trust us. They'll keep referring us. And yeah.
And it'll continue on. Well, let's back up for just a second. I want to get into some more of your examples of how these emerging brands are getting created, but tell us a little bit about how you started in this brand building and shopper marketing world and which early experiences inform the way you lead now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I was at Pepsi, I was in sales and it was a great job. Like it was really hard work though. I mean, it was a grind. The whole time I was there, I think the latest my start time was 5 a.m. So it was always like, depending on the team, one of the teams I managed was a 3:30 a.m. team. So like that was my start time. But my boss wasn't on the 3:30 a.m. team. So he worked till 5. So like I had to be available to answer those calls. So it was a lot of work and it was really physical. Like a lot of like, you know, I think I spent maybe 1 day a week in office in total. But I was constantly, like at gas stations and grocery stores, and like it's not glamorous and it's really hard work. So I felt like it was really good foundation building for me. But I kind of had a moment where I was like, well, Eleanor, like things are going really well at Pepsi. You need to decide, like, is this really what you want to do? Because most people here blink and they're collecting their 20-year anniversary badge. And so I'm like, do you want to do sales and do this forever? Or like, do you really want to get back into marketing? So I started exploring options for marketing. And actually at Kodiak, I applied for a field marketing position because I didn't know much about marketing. I never had a marketing job before. I was interviewing for it, and the guy who was interviewing me, he was like, you know what? I'm hearing your experience, and like we have the shopper marketing manager position open, and I feel like you fit for that a lot better. And I was like, okay. And I remember like being kind of disappointed, like, oh, they're not going to hire me. I don't even know what shopper marketing is. Like, they're not going to give me that job. And I was trying to research it, and there really wasn't like a ton on the internet around like what is shopper marketing and like how do you kind of like. I mean, this was like 10 years ago. And and then I went into the interview just really honest. I was like, hey, I've tried to research it. I feel like I kind of understand a little bit. I'm going to be honest, though. I don't really know a ton about shopper marketing, but I'm really willing to learn. And like, I will, be a self-starter and make it happen. And then Darla, who's actually, she's still there. She was like, okay, yeah, you know what? Like, let's do this. Like, you should take the job. And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? I remember being like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So I put in my notice at Pepsi, and Kodiak was amazing. Like they really invested in my growth and learning. I felt like I was everything that I asked for. I was like, hey, can I go to this conference? Can I go to this to learn? Can I come to these sales meetings? Like I went to tons of sales meetings in that first year, just like trying to absorb and understand what the buyers were looking for. And so I just felt like I got a lot of really great experience there and kind of loved it from then.
That's amazing. They saw the bright star that you are and your willingness to learn. That's brilliant.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, no, I still am like, shout out Darla. Thanks. Wouldn't be here without you. But yeah.
I love it. Well, when you think about how far you've come since the Darla days, what is maybe the hardest part? Like you said, a lot of brands think that getting on shelf is the hardest part, or figuring out how to manage some of those. It's almost like another, minimum or quantity in some of these minimum amounts of spend. What do you think are the real challenges once a brand, commercializes, maybe makes it on shelf? What are they up against?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think honestly, from what I've seen on the brands that I've worked on, I mean, again, we've worked on all like startup, emerging brands and then like some mid-market. And the things that I see startup and emerging brands experience the most challenge with, even though I'm only working on the marketing side, is COGS and operations. Like they just have a really hard time with their margins. And so I think like a lot of times people will be like, let's just make the product and then we'll figure out the margins later. And it's like a lot of the times they get to a point where, okay, cool, we got this amazing Target and Walmart distribution, but now because our cogs are so high, we actually don't have like the marketing, the amount, like the money to be able to invest in marketing. And then you're like, okay, well now you're like struggling to maintain your distribution there because you aren't able to support the product on a shelf. So it's just like I in a couple of for a couple of reasons, I urge brands to one, of course, like try to nail down their cogs sooner than later, and two, to not expect marketing to make up for your um, struggles on the margins perspective. So like a lot of time brands will come and they'll be like, I think, and I get it, they're trying to do their due diligence. Like they want, to make sure that they're making the right investments. And so like they'll come and they'll say, well, we need our ROAS to be a 7x. Because really, when it's the ROAS on Instacart is based off of Instacart's sales, but like our sales is only 30% of that. Or like kind of how they'll look at some of that. So I think a lot of it is really looking at, we have clients who will ask like, hey, can you calculate this for us based on our contribution margins? And I'm like, absolutely. Then we can make sure like where we're at above a 1, making sure that, we're, we're more than breaking even. But the struggle with that too, though, is again, like you're holding your marketing and your sales back to make up for some of those cogs when really like putting more of those efforts in sourcing and whatever it is that they need, whether it's freight or whatever, to be better. So
yeah, and that applies across the board beyond even CPG. I can think of all kinds of businesses where if it's set up to fail, marketing can't. I like to say, my dad is a doctor. He used to say, I'm a doctor, not an effing magician. And I've been say, I'm a brand strategist, not an effing magician.
That's so funny. It's so real. Like, I think that's the thing. When you have clients coming to you at some point, essentially saying like, hey, wait, we actually need to stop selling so much. I'm like, that's scary. Like, wanting them to be able to be successful, and our job is to grow velocities and grow revenue for you. And so making sure that you're prepared and you have like a solid setup before you get that big retailer distribution.
That's right.
And it's hard. It's hard because I think a lot of times too, people will say like, oh, well, you don't get cogs and efficiencies unless you have the volume. But even when they do get the volume, they're not seeing those efficiencies. So now what? Like,
what are those fundamentals that they need to have set up in order to hit the velocities that they have in mind? So it sounds like cogs is key. What else from a brand standpoint?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Also, when you're like picking what product to sell, like, when you're thinking about the types of products, it's like, sticking in higher velocity categories. I like make the joke all the time to my team. I'm like, if anybody knows any frozen brands, I love working on a frozen brand. Frozen brands, the velocities are like amazing. And I don't know, for some reason we work really well on frozen. Every time we've taken one over, we've seen them totally skyrocket. So I'm like, that's amazing. Where things get tricky is like all the sauces. I feel like there are so many. It's different. If you're doing like a pasta sauce, like people are buying jars of pasta sauce every week. But like when you're doing like a condiment, I've just seen so many brands really struggle on like a hot sauce or condiment. We work with Truff and they're obviously like amazing and crushing it. And that is like such a case study in itself. I still am like, you guys, I don't know how you do it. Cause like people just you don't buy hot sauce that often. So it's like, how do you make it work? So
how do they do it? They've diversified their portfolio. They have a lot more products than they did before. What are their other secrets?
They do. They have some other products. I don't actually know, honestly. Like, I think they did a really good job differentiating themselves.
The packaging looks amazing. Even just the vertical logo, and that word mark.
That's such a good call. And like even like the cap is really nice. And like, it is a super premium product. I think that's part of it. And then it seems like they've done also a lot of like restaurant type partnerships, which kind of honestly like similar when you think about like another case study of like Cholula, for example, was like also another one that did really well with that. So yeah, I think probably a combination of those things. Like it is pretty cool to watch. Because
Cholula, Mike's Hot Honey, Fever Tree was the original CPG to go into food service and have all these different, not only restaurant partnerships, but be the official mixer and then be doing recipes.
Yes, that's such a good call out. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, because Truff did like actually I think they might still be doing. They have like hot sauce packets at Starbucks for like the sandwiches and stuff, and like I know they're doing other things similar, but pretty cool.
Awesome examples for, again, what can up and coming brands do to compete, to get in there and
Hmm.
think more creatively about how you get not just the revenue, but the visibility.
Yeah, totally.
Eleanor, when you think of all the different things that some of these brands could be doing, retail media, promotions, displays, coupons, it's really overwhelming, not to mention all the special cases that we just listed a few of. If a brand leader had to focus on just one or two levers, say that they are just getting started, where should they start?
Um, it's really dependent on budget too and retailer. Like usually I'd want to be pretty specific, but I think like if we were to zoom out a little bit more, I'd probably look at retail media first. Usually it's like on-site retail media, I should say specifically, not activate off-site. Definitely not the first tactic I would recommend, but on-site, so sponsored search, shoppable display, or sponsored brands ads, like that's probably the first place I'd go to start seeing some turns. And that's also again because it's like it's quick, it's easy to activate. You can do it on $100 budget if you wanted to. I mean, there's no minimums. But then honestly, like immediately after that, I'd start looking at in store. And even like sampling programs, but not demos. So what I mean by that is like where can you give out like a sealed sample size product, or you know, if you're a beverage, like we give out full cans or things like that, but just to get people to try it. Your CAC ends up being, you know, so much lower than even like a demo. I think a lot of times people do demos because they're technically easier to activate, but they're so expensive and they don't scale.
Mhm.
And you also you don't guarantee that people are going to really be able to try it. I think about it all the time. You know, it's like Target is like one of those big retailers that everyone always does demos at, and has anybody here seen a Target demo? And if you have, like, have you ever actually taken a sample from one? You know, so
You know, the only Target demo that I've taken a sample of recently is the new Dove body wash flavors. They had people giving out these adorable loofahs for their summertime tea party flavor. And
cute.
I got that. And now we have to go back every turn, every new flavor. Now they have peppermint chocolate body wash that my kids are going crazy about.
Oh my gosh.
Because of a little loofah demo, they were giving it away.
Okay, see, and that's the thing, but that was more of an experience. They're giving out like a fun little like prize. Like that's an interesting way to do it. Like if you're gonna do it, do something kind of a little bit more unique like that. I love that.
And why do you think it's more important to give something sealed that they take the whole thing versus demo
Yeah.
sample?
People are just less likely to grab something that's open, right? Like and then they have to want it in that exact moment where like you could grab a granola bar and say like I'll eat that later, but maybe you just had lunch or whatever. So it's just like you'd have to be perfectly timed in the moment with the demo, and it's just not. And then also like you can't depend on like the foot traffic, right? Like you don't know what that traffic's going to look like in that store that day that you're doing the demos. And Target itself obviously has had like some foot traffic struggles, but like even if you think about other retailers, it's still, I don't know. Um, so
That's what they say about restaurants too. The days of the Chick-fil-A chicken on a toothpick passed out.
oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. That was such a thing. Like in the mall, you'd be
Yeah,
saying the mall, they'd be handing
they're
out.
tempting you in to get a chicken sandwich that doesn't exist anymore.
That is so funny. I love hearing your perspective from the restaurant side of this stuff.
There's so many parallels.
That's so interesting. I
Well,
know
back
it's
to
funny. I think about it all the time because you'll see these like big, um, like with McDonald's just doing the new Grinch meal, and now Burger King's doing like the SpongeBob meal, and I'm seeing stuff like this, and every time I'm like, I wonder what agency did this because it's like kind of takes me back to when I met you and we worked on restaurant stuff, and it's so interesting.
or the best of both worlds. I love that you are loving Frozen because one of my favorite projects was when we helped Panera with their CPG. So it was like taking the brand equities of the bakery cafe and expanding them across grocery. And you're exactly right. That was when, this was like 10 years ago, but when not everybody was sold that frozen was going to be on fire. And look at it now.
It really is. It's kind of nuts. Like, I was surprised, to be honest, especially with like, when you think about like ice cream or frozen pizza, like such competitive categories, it's like, man, I mean, frozen pizza is the entire aisle. Ice cream is like the entire aisle. And still, like, they all just are crushing it.
Yeah. Frozen fruit,
Yes.
fresh, worked on Dole for a long time. What a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
back
crazy.
to Verity, you said that this is the agency you've told me before that you wish you'd had when you're on the brand side. What do you
Yeah.
think is missing, and what did you intentionally build differently as you outlined your own company?
That's a great question. Yeah. So when I was on the brand side, I like it wasn't a thing to like, I don't know, maybe for me and from what I had heard from other CPG friends, but like it wasn't a thing to work with agencies. Like when we were that small, the startups and like even like up to 100 million in revenue, like it wasn't a thing to work with agencies. I feel like retail media is what like sparked it for a lot of these emerging brands where they're like, oh, software is involved. We need someone to do this for us. And then from there, it started like getting, I really honestly, though, even from like a shopper marketing perspective, most of the CPG brands that I've spoken to, like if they work with an agency, it's just for retail media, not really like they're not even really doing shopper marketing, or they have someone in house that manages it. So they coordinate a lot of it. But like our clients, like we show them, a lot of value in the shopper marketing piece because we get such amazing rates for placing, displays and doing all the corrugate design and then the design work as well. Like we have a creative director who does all of that amazing design work and we do the creative concepting and everything, so like they get this full white glove experience on everything without having to truly be experts in knowing. And then of course like every retailer has different vendors that you can work with, and anyway, so there's so many pieces like that. Yeah, so when I was working on the brand side, I just kind of had to like trial and error. I mean, there was a lot of things that we tested that were like, okay, that doesn't work. But it would have been nice to have someone like Verity to say, hey, don't waste your money on that. Don't spend money here. I think one big thing that our clients experience when they first start working with us is really quickly is a ton of cost savings. They're like, we're like, whoa, I see this in your budget. Here's why it doesn't make sense. Let's reallocate it here. So we've been able to do that a ton for brands. And then in terms of other gaps too, I think like for us, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you really only like hear from your agency like, the once every few weeks that you meet, or there's not really like a ton of like active work. A lot of other agencies too, like I feel like even when I hire people from agencies, there's like a serious training period of like, hey, don't ask the client what what they think you should do. Like we bring them. Here's like the concept, because I think like a lot of times when you meet with your agency, they're kind of like, so what do you want to do? Or like when you meet with a shopper marketing contact on the brand side, they'll say, well, I tell the agency what to do. And I'm like, well, then what's the point? Like at that point, you could have just hired an associate to do all the execution for you or things like that. So I think, we're really like proactive partner. We're actually like really strategic and help with like building the full year plans and strategies. And then we execute after all of that is agreed on. So it's helpful because we can help a brand do a lot more with a lot less, faster.
Yeah, instead of throwing a lot of things on the ceiling and seeing what sticks, you actually pause for a second, figure out the strategy, what
Yes.
you actually need based on experience and expertise. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other examples like Truff that you've been really impressed by?
Um, yeah, totally. I mean, True Fruit is another client of ours that they're a very interesting brand because they were acquired by Mars maybe maybe 2 years ago now. I don't know. It was a year or so ago. And Mars has really like let them continue to operate as they have, which I thought was actually really cool from an acquisition perspective. It's like, okay, Mars is really understanding like True Fruit has some magic and they don't want to mess it up. And like, you know, it seemed, at least from the outside looking in, like, I mean, they got a new CEO and some leadership, but new CEO is great. And the marketing team is operating still just as, scrappy as they used to. And they're really focused on like those top, revenue driving tactics. And I think, yeah, I mean, they're a frozen brand too, obviously, and they're, crushing it and growing like crazy. So it is cool to see, even through an acquisition, a brand continue to still be able to kind of stay strong to their roots on that. Because it does happen so often. It's like a brand gets acquired and then like not 2 months later does everything get totally scrapped. And so, yeah.
That is sad. When have you seen that before? I saw Siete post Pepsi acquisition sort of lingering, all their end caps were in disarray, like their signage down. I was like, oh. And is that Justin's just had Justin Gold is back with their original CEO.
Yes.
Swooped in and bought majority share back because it's been so mismanaged and left to linger.
Yeah, I saw that too. Very cool. Yeah, we had a client, I won't say the brand because I don't, but we had a client get acquired by a large like public company last year. And they, I think it was like 3 months into the partnership. So the big company that acquired them had an agreement with a very, very, like one of the big four giant agencies. And so they had an agreement, of course, that they couldn't work with other agencies. So our client had to let us go, and they moved on with this big four agency. Well, agency didn't take us off of the accounts, so we were still tracking performance. And in the first 2 months of working with the other agency, they lost 80% of sales with the same ad spend that we were spending. They had an 80% decrease in sales. So I was like, dang. I mean, our average when clients leave us is a 30% decline in sales, but 80%, I was like, woof. So, I think it's like, and then I saw it and I was like, this is what happens. Like these brands, the big companies see this amazing magic in these smaller brands. They want to be a part of it. They take it over and they think they're making it better, but then they wreck them, and it's just a shame.
And how does that happen if they're keeping the same ad spend? They just don't have the same attention to detail, or they're not making those decisions that you do with, like you say, hands on keyboard?
Yeah. So there's so many things. I mean, our campaign strategy is also really unique from what I could tell, at least based off of when clients come over, we see how like they're set up before. I'm like, oh, this is very different from how we normally do it. And so I haven't seen anyone set up or manage the way that we do. And, we have a 100% success rate at bringing brands over to, when brands come over to us, we grow their platform return within the first 3 months. So like, which is their sales when you take out the ad spend component. So, I think our campaign strategy is just very different. And then of course our continued management and attention to detail and everything like that. But yeah,
it makes a big difference. And I think that's why you're starting to see more big brands and small brands come to smaller shops like ours, because they don't get that level of attention and detail from these massive agencies, whether it's shopper marketing or advertising, just entrusting your strategy to some of these massive.
Yeah. And they do the struggle with those giant agencies is that they do everything. So they say that they're like the best at everything, but it's like, a lot of the times then I've talked to some people who, work on the brand side, but have managed the relationship with these big agencies. And they're like, oh yeah, the people who are executing our retail media, like graduated college 2 months ago, have never done retail media in their lives. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. Like, so, where for us, like everyone on our team has at least 5 years of experience before even starting with us on the retail media, like all of our account managers and like hands-on keys people, on the retail media side before even starting to work with us. Like, we are really truly like specialists in retail marketing and like making sure that we, are the best, giving the best setup for our brands. So
yeah, I love that. That's also why at Starry we have people who have client side experience, so that we understand what it takes to have, ideas that work in the real world rather than random ad agencies that have been on the consulting side forever.
I know. I've actually been like so on that kick too. Like I've been looking for brand side people to add to the team because I love like I want to hire more people that were like in the same boat as me when I was, it's like they're managing all the shopper and retail in house.
Yeah.
Um, and have like that look of like what are the CPG brands looking for? We want to be truly like that CPG first shopper agency.
Awesome. And over the last few years, when you think about building this company and being a working mom with two littles, what has been surprising or what's something that you maybe weren't prepared for?
I think about you all the time on this front. It's so funny. I'm like, how does she do it with 5 kids? And that you have like more businesses. Like, I'm like, you have 5 kids, you're managing multiple things. Like, it's unbelievable. And then you still have time to like, start a podcast. Like, I just, it's wild. I'm very impressed. I think for me, I think I spend a lot of time trying to just like focus on being where my feet are. Like, I remind myself, like, okay, you know, after 5, like I send the nanny home and I'm on like dinner and kids until like my husband gets home from work too. And like, I'm like, okay, this is fam time. Like we're focused on this in the moment and trying to just kind of to be where I'm at in those moments. And I think another thing too is like the boundary setting has been a big key learning for me this year on my own boundaries with myself. I'm not even talking about with other people. It's really like, I was getting myself to a point where I was working 100 hours a week and I had 2 kids. Like, it's just not sustainable to like tell my husband, like, okay, on Saturdays, I'm going to go work in an office for the day. And then like I work during nap time on Sundays. And then I work at night after the kids go to bed. Like, it just wasn't sustainable. And also I realized like there's always going to be work to do. There's always going to be a lot of opportunity. And like, you might miss some, but like you catch what you can and hopefully it'll all be good. But I think, at the end of the day, I mean, I can tell based on how much we've grown this thing just in the last year. I was like, whoa, if you told me last, November, December that I was going to have 17 employees by the end of this year, I'd tell you you're nuts. Like I just would not have guessed. And it just happened so fast. But now I'm really focused on, like really trying to like nail down our operations, but also figure out like my work-life balance better and things like that. So that's what I've been really trying to do. Yeah.
Well, I think about you all the time too. You've been an inspiration to me, especially because you started before and you were one of the first people I called when I was thinking of starting my own thing. You said you could do it. Just start.
Yes.
It's made a big difference for us to encourage each other along the way. And a lot of people say empower women, and have more of these sayings, but don't actually do it. How do you think supporting each other in real practical ways changes the way you've seen leaders grow or take risks or build companies? A lot of people would not be brave enough to do what you've done.
Yes. It is actually like very interesting to see, especially like now being an employer. Like that has been like, I mean, I always knew, about like wage gaps and things like that, but now I can really see like how it happens. Um, even some of the most like mild tempered like men like still are more likely to ask for what they want than your more like forward female employees. Like, and I just think it's so interesting to watch. And I'm like, hey, good for everyone for like asking for what they want. Like, I think that's great. But yeah, I can see how a lot of like how it happens because a lot of women don't like push for it as much. And so anyways, I think like that's been like interesting. And then in terms of like the women supporting women, I don't know. I feel like we got like a pretty solid community. I mean, um I saw like a stat not that long ago. It was like for the first time in so many years, like there's like we've seen, I can't remember, it was like a good amount of growth in women founders, um, which I thought was cool. Like at least maybe less women are being chosen to be CEOs, but more women are saying, I don't care, don't make me a CEO, I'll do it myself. And I think that's really cool too. So there's been a lot more of that, which is cool too.
There's another really good podcast that I like called Own It. And it's Christy Heiler out of Lexington, Kentucky. She talks more about women in the ad agency, but I feel like it's like a little virtual community of other fellow founders who you can learn from.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that one out.
Yeah, like we do. Uh, when you think about in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think will separate creative brand leaders from those who fall behind, especially with some of the creative tactics we've discussed now? That could be brand side, more of our strategy firm excitement. What do you think will be the difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of go back to like some of the things we talked about earlier today is really like, you know, not placing emphasis in the in-store piece is going to have like negative effects. I think like just like everything. I mean, I'm not saying retail media is a trend. I'm sure it's going to be around for a very very long time. I mean, people now. I almost exclusively buy my groceries online. Like the only time I go to the store is if it's like an oh crap, like I need this right today and I can't. It's too late or whatever it is for my order. But so like people are going to buy groceries, always going to buy groceries online now. But um, you just never know like how things change or things like that. And it's like one thing that we know is always going to be true is that like people will always go into stores to buy groceries. And so like sticking with that and then back to the cogs thing and like get your ops in order, I think is like honestly it's the first hire or investment I would make if I were starting a CPG brand.
That makes
Just like
sense.
operations like expert.
Yeah. What other trends are you most excited about for 2026? Are there any CPG trends or unmet needs you think are coming along the way?
Um it's so funny. I don't know like I don't know if these are real trends that are about to happen or not, but something that I've been like waiting for is I'm surprised there aren't more brands selling individual packets of dressing, salad dressing, like for lunch boxes. I'm like, why why are people still squeezing squeezing salad dressings into containers? Like, I'm just really surprised. I found one brand online that was doing it. I think it's called Lava or something like that. And it looks interesting, but and I was like, okay, let's get them into retail. But yeah, I'm surprised that that set doesn't have, it's like people are starting, salad dressing brands, but I'm like, why? I'm like, these are so useful for people at lunch. So anyways,
Yeah, that's a great one because you could just go to Chick-fil-A and stock up there. They might charge
that's what I'm saying.
sauce, but it could be worth it. I think that all the time for kids snacks too. Who is going to make a more sustainable single serve pack like the goldfish? Because
Yes.
otherwise you're just using either your silicone bags that are getting dirty and lost, that are super expensive, or more plastic, single use.
Exactly. Yes, I completely agree. I think also like I think about like the kid snack thing and I feel like there's still opportunity for people to do better on getting kids to eat vegetables. I'm like, why is my best bet on a sneaky vegetable really like a pouch? Like, um, I just feel like we could be doing better, or at least like have cleaner options. I've seen, like there are some like muffin, like frozen muffin brands, things like that. Also, just like there's struggle in shelf stable baked goods. Like, what is that? I mean, people are really having a hard time making those. I think it's like the moisture is really hard. Like, but I'm like,
When you get away from those stabilizers, it's tough.
yeah, it's so interesting. I'm like still waiting for that natural clean label hostess, little Debbie, to come through.
Same. Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, next podcast, next quality time
Yes,
meeting together, we'll develop these concepts and pitch them to who needs them.
perfect. That sounds great.
What are other ways you stay creative day to day, Eleanor? When you're deep in dashboards, developing your team, you got all these retailer negotiations, data, and your sweet little boys. How are you staying creative? What do you do?
Oh gosh. I think the little boys are what keep me creative. I mean, being able to like play with them, they have such good imaginations. I was actually like so impressed. Like my 2.5-year-old yesterday, we were playing with magnet tiles and he's like made a garage for his Hot Wheels. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. Like that's so like it's cool seeing like their imagination come into play because like I don't really feel like I have that as much anymore, or like just watching them, run around, and the amount of times I hear like activate turbo boosters and words like that in my house, I'm like, okay, cool. You guys keep doing it.
That's adorable. I think they keep us creative. I think they keep us younger too.
They do.
You got to sprint after them, so that makes a difference.
Exactly.
Well, let's transition into our starry-eyed sparks, a bit of a lightning round. Eleanor, what is the best or most inspiring book you've read? And that could be lately or that could be of all time.
Okay, most inspiring of all time is Pour Your Heart Into It by Howard Schultz. That first Starbucks book. I loved that book from like an entrepreneurship perspective. So
should have known you'd say that one. That was an awesome one. What's another brand you admire that's not your own or one that we've talked about already? What's another one you think is up and coming and doing a wonderful job?
I really, I love Pumpkin Tree Organics. I think they're like everything I would want to be if I were a CPG brand. They're super clean label, organic products, shelf stable, accessible. Like they're not crazy expensive. They're distributed everywhere. I think it's cool.
Good one. What's a word that describes how you want to lead in the next year?
With courage.
You always do. That's what I like about you. A new thing you'd like to try in the next year?
I'd like to, consider some new softwares to help like make my business a little bit more efficient. I feel like I'm always working in Excel sheets and I'm like, I know there's probably a better way to do this.
Makes sense. Speaking of which, back to the last one for just a second. Where does that courage come from? How did you cultivate that along with the creativity?
Yeah, I think it's, just like always making sure I'm moving within my core values, and like, how do I kind of stay in alignment there? But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then what's your go-to walk-on or pump-up song? You have something big to do. What song do you turn on?
Oh, that's so funny. I think about like that Perfect Day song from Legally Blonde.
We love that. We love that movie. And the second one.
Yeah.
Favorite cocktail or mocktail?
A like whiskey sour with egg white.
Awesome. Well, Eleanor, thanks so much for sharing your expertise and experience and favorites. Two final questions for you. What's one mindset or action you'd encourage brand leaders to try after listening to today?
One mindset, I think, just maybe not racing all the way to sale is probably like my big one. It's like, don't build to sell, build to make impact. Mm-hmm. And then maybe the success you're looking for will come after.
Which is what you've done. And who's a creative leader you admire and think we should invite to stay starry-eyed next?
A creative leader that I'm inspired by. Avi Scheinbaum. I feel like she's, I just met her last week and she's super inspiring. I mean, she's really like figured out like her business and her efficiencies and how to like make things work for brands in the same, in the best way for them,
Remind me what Avi is up to.
She does, like experiential, like sampling and demo programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our kids are friends. And we
yeah, she's older.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Perfect. All right, we'll invite Avi on next.
Yes, that sounds great.
Well, Eleanor, anything else as we wrap up? Anything else you want to cover or mention?
No, I think we went through so many awesome topics. I just excited to keep growing CPG brands and help make better for you products more accessible.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Stay Starry-Eyed podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas, strategies, and tools you can use to move your brand and business forward. If you enjoyed this episode, here's how you can help share it with your fellow brand leaders who need it most. Hit follow, share it with a friend, and please leave us 5 stars or a quick review. You know we love all the stars. You can also find show notes, resources, and additional inspiration at starryeyeedstrategy.com. Until next time, stay starry-eyed.